Joining me now is our Monday panel, former Labor Senator Stephen Conroy and former Speaker of the House, Bronwyn Bishop. Hi to you both. Thank you so much for joining us on the show this evening. Look, let's start, of course, with China and Premier Li's visit. Bronwyn, the Prime Minister says this relationship with Beijing is being renewed, yet in the background, as we've seen, they tried to block Sky News journalist Cheng Lei from being in sight of the cameras at a press event. I just find it extraordinary. How would you describe this?
I describe it as cringeworthy. I was, as an Australian, embarrassed by the Prime Minister of my country and his behaviour. That pathetic performance about not having been made aware of it. Oh, I smiled at Cheng Lei, but I didn't see those heavies come in front of her and block her. I mean, the man just is not up to the job. I've said again and again, 20 years plus in that chamber with that man, nobody ever said he was a leader, and we see it on display. And that behaviour in our parliament to an Australian citizen who had been imprisoned by that government is absolutely unbelievable. So pander diplomacy, all the positive niceties and the words, and they were words, there was not much substance there. All of that, the reality is that he is weak. He does kowtow. He does kiss the hand that holds the whip.
Absolutely. And we saw that today. He doesn't know. It's this nothing to see here attitude when it comes to China. Stephen, I mean, how can it be believed that he didn't see what had happened, or at least didn't hear about it? He's got 11 media advisors. Surely one of them has told him, hey, this could be breaking news.
Well, look, I've just got to respond to a few of, frankly, your opening comments, your loaded question and Bronwyn's usual invective. So let's be clear, Bronwyn, you were voting for renditions from Australia to be legal in legislation when you were in Parliament. Disgraceful. Labor said it would oppose it. Bill Shorten, Anthony Albanese said they would oppose it. When it comes to who's going to be tough, well, look, you could try the approach, I guess, of saying you're going to shirt front Putin. That worked well, made a big difference. You could humiliate yourselves on the international stage by, making all sorts of threats that were completely ignored by China. The bottom line in dealing with China is they don't care what we think. This is all theatre for them. They don't
we care what we think.
Doesn't matter whether
Stephen.
you scream at them. Thanks, Bronwyn. I'll just finish. They care about not a word we say. You can shout through a foghorn, like the previous government did, or you could talk to them moderately, sensibly, get some trade barriers that were wrongly put up taken down. Neither of them will actually affect the way China want to behave. You've just got to look at their behaviour in the South China Sea at the moment. They've just passed legislation. They've just passed legislation to say they can detain anyone in the South China Sea in their territorial waters that they want. Now, that's targeted at other nations specifically rather than Australia in general. But if they wanted to allegedly detain some Australian citizen who was sailing through without their permission, or one of our warships,
and you think that's
engaging
okay?
in freedom of navigation.
So
no,
you
I don't
think
it's
the
okay
behaviour,
at all. I just don't think.
You think that Australia behaving as it did today in that weak fashion is the right way to combat what you're just describing? It was weak.
The sort of
look, communications.
The sort of
We're going to have more communications. It's all fixed. What rubbish?
The foghorn diplomacy of the last government.
The wolf warrior was dropped before you got elected. Your lot got elected.
You don't get to lecture Labor.
Yes, you do.
Using a failed policy agenda,
No, there wasn't a failed policy
your
agenda.
team tried before the last election.
Listen, Stephen.
So that's the first point.
The wolf warrior treatment by China had finished before the 22 election. It was already dropped because they saw it was counterproductive for them. So don't go saying, look, we introduced communications and that's what's brought all this beautiful, we can now sell wine to China.
Nothing.
Really?
There's no change in China's actual
No.
There's no change in China's actual behaviour on the ground. They are competing to buy steal and bribe Pacific Island nations to their side of
Correct.
the general
And Penny Wong's policy
Well,
is
it happened on your watch.
No, it didn't.
It happened on your
Stephen.
watch.
Maurice Payne failed to go to the Solomons. That opened up an opportunity for Penny Wong to grandstand.
It's Maurice's fault.
I want to ask you both actually.
That would be the foreign minister for your government.
I want to ask you both about the Pacific Islands, because Penny Wong says that Peter Dutton's plan to ditch Australia's 2030 climate target will actually strengthen Beijing's hand in the permanent contest in the Pacific. Bronwyn, do you think that that is the case? Do you think that Samoa, Tonga really care about Australia's emissions targets?
Yes, they care about climate change very much.
Of course.
But they also appreciate the support we give them. They appreciated during the COVID emergency, they appreciated that we gave them vaccines. They appreciate that we give them finance to reconstruct their economies. They appreciate our defence and our assistance that we give them. But the question is that there's no two ways about it. China is trying to buy those Pacific Island states and then bankrupt them when they can't repay the money they lent, and then have total influence over them. But you don't combat that by saying, as Penny Wong has done, that it's all about climate change and targets, because it's not. The question is, are we there as their best neighbour? We have the policy where we let workers come into Australia, where we have policies that make us a good neighbour.
Yeah.
And for Penny Wong to come out and try and to destroy that relationship by saying it's all about climate change just shows what a mean girl she really is.
Stephen, what's your response to that?
Well, I'm glad Bronwyn is endorsing the actual policy initiatives that Penny Wong is engaged in.
No, they're the
Penny Wong has
policies that were
visited more
in
of
place under the
those
coalition.
countries. Yeah, Maurice Payne, as you've just said, failed to do her job, and Penny Wong is doing a great job. She's got Pat Conroy. Yeah, failed to do her job. Thank you for agreeing again. So Labor is actually following through on those policies. We've had Richard Marles there all the time.
Well, they were coalition
Penny Wong
policies.
there all the time. Pat Conroy there all the time. And now we've got the latest initiative, which to people in the southern states, Bronwyn, you won't surprise you they're confused by this, but rugby diplomacy, where we're talking with Fiji about with Papua New Guinea.
But I think I'm more familiar with the people of Papua New Guinea than you are, and their love for rugby league, and I'm fully aware.
No, I just said
that.
people from Victoria won't get this, okay? But it is a massive issue that the government is pursuing. So Labor is actually following through, not talking big words, not on the megaphone,
not so,
actually delivering outcomes.
All right.
The policies in the Pacific Island states, as I described them, were coalition policies in place before the election in 22.
All right, look, let's move on, because I want
the coalition, not the climate.
I want to move on because I want to get to you both on the NDIS. I've just spoken about the mess, and now we've got Dungeons and Dragons gaming nights to add to a whole list of rorts that we've been hearing about over the last few months. Bronwyn, the scheme is blowing out all the time. Every month there's a new different rort. Something different pops up. Well, I mean, Stephen's laughing. This is not a laughable matter, Stephen. It's costing taxpayers
I'm laughing because
billions of
I can't
dollars.
wait to see how Bronwyn wants to follow the same statement. These are the Liberal government's policies that have led to these blowouts and rorts.
Bill Shorten's
this is your policies.
Bill Shorten created the NDIS. It was legislated.
You were in government for 9 years.
It was legislated by Labor. And every time an amendment
you've
was
amended
proposed
it plenty of times along the way in 9 years.
The Labor Party would say, oh, you're destroying the NDIS and attacking disabled people.
Yeah.
So the problem with the scheme is its original design. Now, Bill Shorten's in charge of it now, and he's got to fix it. And that means parameters.
Correct.
It means putting rules in place.
And that's called
Medicare,
the legislation
use Medicare
in the
as a
Parliament
basis.
now.
Well,
Vote for it.
Stephen,
No.
this scheme was designed for the most severely disabled, and now you've got about 45% of recipients.
And that's why Bill Shorten
who have
has
an autism
legislation in
diagnosis,
Parliament,
and everyone is getting a
Danica,
go.
right now. It's in Parliament today, waiting for the Liberals to vote
Why is
for
Bill
it.
Shorten out brokering peace for Ukraine?
Well, look, it may come as a surprise to you. Bill Shorten has some experience. Bill Shorten has some experience as former leader for 6 years in the world stage, OK? He actually, as leader, had responsibilities. But to your issue, where's Penny Wong? She's actually here dealing with a visit, the most senior visit in 7 years from the Chinese, with the Prime Minister and a raft of other ministers. They're all involved here. Bill Shorten is a significant contributor and
he's a
senior
failed
minister
leader, Stephen.
in this
Let's
government.
get it right.
All right.
And he can't fix the NDIS.
We're almost out of time.
He is over there. He has legislation in Parliament today. Vote for it, Bronwyn, and help fix the rorts.
It doesn't fix the rorts. And it's not about rorts. It's about the way in which Bill Shorten set it up. It needs fundamental restructuring.
Well, you were in government for 9 years.
He's in Switzerland. He's broken peace.
Well, maybe
moonlighting as a foreign minister. Look, just really quickly, Peter Dutton has gained a narrow leader's preferred Prime Minister in the latest Resolve poll, 36 to 35% over Anthony Albanese. Bronwyn, you know, we can't read much. This is one poll. But I've got to ask you, the Greens lifted their primary vote from 12 to 14%. What does that suggest?
Well, it suggests, like everybody else, they see that the Prime Minister is weak, floundering and ineffective. And nothing's going to hide that. And I've heard Albanese say again and again, oh, I've never been beaten in a poll. Well, sorry, sunshine, you have today.
Yeah, and should Labor be worried about this, Stephen?
Look, there's been a softening trend over the last 6 months. The cost of living crisis is no question biting. But what you'll see from the 1st of July is that Labor's tax cuts come in. It's energy relief come in. It's Made in Australia agenda. More jobs in Australia. So, yes, certainly the government should be paying very close attention to this. It's heavily weighted in Queensland, where Peter Dutton is the most popular, and that slightly because he's so popular in Queensland, that's making the weighting around the rest of the country. But if you took Queensland out and looked at the rest of the country, Albo is more popular than Dutton.
Unfortunately for you, Stephen, Queensland right in.
To be replacements, not for a moment. We only hold 5 seats, Bronwyn. It's hard to do much worse in Queensland than our current 5 seats. We have in the past. We've had as low as 2. We have had as low as 2. Yes, I agree with you. So that's why we can't be complacent. Labor should be absolutely not complacent about these polling. It says that the settings that we've made, the changes in the budget that come in on the 1st of July, are necessary and important for the people of Australia.
All right, look, we've got
a little too late ones.
We've got to go. I've loved the debate tonight. Stephen Conroy, Bronwyn Bishop, great to be with you. Thank you so much for joining us on the show this evening.